To the town of Knocklong, for to right or wrong, came a band of young volunteers, not a reason why but to do or die, and to rescue Sean Hogan there. There was Foley, Scanlon and Brian, there were Bryans, so keen, Lynch, Robinson and Tracy Gay. They answered the call, God bless them all, when their comrade in danger lay. A youth in his teens, not yet 18, and chained to a carriage cell, how his heart beat fast as the train sped past the green fields he loved so well. No hope had he of liberty, but death on a gallows tree, and only a boy, not afraid to die, that whole Ireland might yet be free. The night was dim when the train pulled in, and the bailiffs stood on their guard, but I reckon not on the hail of shot that came from the station yard. No time have we for chivalry, said Tracy as he stormed the train. No mercy show to our Saxon foe, or our mission will be in vain. They charged the door with a hearty roar, no fear their eyes portrayed. And down the train, with their guns aflame, they sought their young comrade. My prisoner I shoot, cried the Saxon brute, if my warning you dare ignore. But he fell instead, he was shot through the head, and Sean Hogan was free once more. And on that day, like a shower of hail, the peel's bullets rained. But by 12 that night, they had won the fight, and their freedom they had gained. And they sang this song as they marched along, our arms will never lay down, till all Ireland is free, from sea to sea, and the flag flies over Belfast town. Today marks the 101st anniversary of what would be one of the most seismic events of the War of Independence, one of the most pivotal events of that troublesome period, the rescue of Sean Hogan at Knocklong railway station in County Limerick. Hogan had been arrested 2 days previously at Mahers of Anfield, having attended a house dance there, having come from another house dance. And he was detained first of all in Roskilde Barracks, and then taken to Thurles RIC Barracks, and then placed on the evening train on the 13th of May 1919, heading for Cork, a journey that would surely have ended at the end of a hangman's rope. He was rescued by his comrades at Knocklong railway station in County Limerick in one of the most daring episodes of the War of Independence. Today, when we look back, 1 year after the event, 100 years ago, the great effect that had on the nationalist movement and on the course of the War of Independence. The action at Solihull Beg, in which Hogan was involved, was not universally popular with many sections of the community. Indeed, most of Sinn Féin and National Asylum were being committed to peaceful means of resolving the conflict. But Brian, in his own biography, My Fight for Irish Freedom, he wrote about where places that they were once welcome, after Solihull Beg, they were welcome no longer. So, Knocklong and the rescue of Hogan at Knocklong was seen as a very courageous and manful act in comparison to what many would have depicted the action of Solihull Beg had been. The participants of the rescue of Hogan at Knocklong, especially the Tipperary men, they went on to gain fame or notoriety in the course of the War of Independence. Dan Breen, his story well documented in films, documentaries, his witness statements, but most of all in his book My Fight for Irish Freedom. The story of Dan Breen is well known, and he went on in later life, having taken the Republican side in the Civil War. He went on to become a Fianna Fáil TD, and he represented Tipperary for quite a number of years. Sean Tracy, unfortunately, was killed in Dublin, Dublin's Talbot Street, excuse me, on the 14th of October 1920, the great what might have been, a great loss to Diarrhea and Tipperary, to Diarrhea in Dublin, to Michael Collins, and a great loss to Ireland. And his story was written, documented by Desmond Ryan, and in writings by Father Colin Kilconway, who wrote extensively about the participants of that period. In later years, his life was documented by Clonmel historian Joe Ambrose. Seamus Robinson went on to take a prominent role in the Civil War, and later became a Fianna Fáil senator and headed the Bureau of Military History, and was also on the board of the Military Service Pensions Board. Lately, a book has been written about the life of Seamus Robinson by Daniel Jack, a relative of the self-said Seamus Robinson. But what was known about Hogan? There could be no rescue of Hogan at the station in Knocklang without there being a Sean Hogan. And who was he? What became of him? Where did he go? What part did he take in the Civil War? What became of him in later life? And until recently, none of this was really known. And Seamus Robinson, in his writings, always referred lovingly and lavishly to Sean Hogan, and a great respect existed between them. And Robinson famously wrote to the exclusion of the story of Sean Hogan from the history of the 3rd Tipperary Brigade, that some of the participants of that time would depict him as being little more than a mascot. A number of years ago, as if in the poem I recited, To Right or Wrong, I set about finding out a little bit about who was Sean Hogan and what was there about him, and why was so little known about the man. And the first day I discovered that he gave 5 continuous years of his young life, from 18 to 23, to a cause that he believed in common with his comrades in West Tipperary. So I done that, and after a number of years I had enough information collected to document it all in book form, and I wrote this book, Sean Hogan, His Life and Troubled Journey. And his troubled journey would refer, first of all, I suppose, his journey on that train, the Cork-bound train that would eventually take him to Cork prison, only for the intervention of his comrades from the 3rd Tipperary Brigade and the brave men of Galbally. The story I wrote tells of deeds of tremendous heroism, deeds of tremendous daring. It also tells the story of huge sacrifice and huge loss. And it also tells the story of the wider impact that this had, and all these things of the troubled times had on many of the participants of that period of the War of Independence. So that's what I set about to do, to write that book. And for the centenary of Knocklang last year, I had that book ready. I launched it in Tipperary town, and if you care to buy that, it retails at €15 plus postage, and if you click on the link underneath, you can buy it. Why did I set about doing it? Why did I set about writing such a work? And I suppose, to me, it's the great untold story. Been brought up in a time of, when we looked on the heroic aspects of that troubled time, little thinking of the individual hell that many of these men suffered consequently and subsequent to that time. And when the history books were written, how some were included and more excluded. And if it was to rectify that, and to, as if it were again to re-rescue Sean Hogan, to take him down from the dusty bookshelves, take him from the archives, and to give him his rightful place in the history of the War of Independence, the subsequent Civil War, and in life afterwards.
The news has spread through Ireland and spread from shore to shore of such a deed no living man has ever heard before. From out the galloped carriage amid a panic-stricken throng, Sean Hogan, he was rescued at the station of Knocklang, when the guard of 4 policemen had their prisoner minded well, as the fatal swain sped o'er the rails, conveying him to his cell. The prisoner then could scarce foretell of hearts both brave and strong. They were planning for his rescue at the station of Knocklang. The shades of people were falling fast when the train at last drew in. It was halted for an hour or so by a few courageous men. They sprang onto the carriage, and it did not take them long. Hands up or die was the rebel cry at the station of Knocklang. Now King George's pampered hirelings, they shriveled up with fear, and thought they found their place in cells full many a volunteer. Now face to face with armed men, to escape how did they long. But 2 of them met with traitorous deaths at the station of Knocklang. From Salehead to Limerick, such deeds as these were seen, and little a tear was ever shed for Wallace of Roskilde. They did all England's dirty work, and did that work too long. But the renegades were numbered up at the station of Knocklang. Now rise up, Mother Erin, and always be of cheer. You'll never die while at your side there stand such volunteers. From Dingle Bay to Garryowen, the cheers will echo long of the rescue of Sean Hogan at the station of Knocklang, of the rescue